Item I1, to direct staff to prepare a plan to transition from Richmond's current community policing model to a plan conducive to the reduced police force and return to council with the preferred policing model and a plan for implementation by the end of the fiscal year.
Let me start by saying, let's recognize that this is an issue that's very emotional for people on all sides of it. So I just want to start by just stating some facts that I think we all know and would agree with, regardless of what you think about the defunding movement. Number one, City of Richmond has a long-term issue in terms of our fiscal health and in terms of our structural deficit. That issue, multiple city managers, the current one and former, have talked to me about how it's been a struggle to try to figure out how to solve that issue, because at the end of the day, so much of our budget is personnel and so much of our budget is public safety. So that's just a fact. Number two, even the budget that we just passed, and now even before I put this item on the agenda, was already true that the budget that we've just passed that we were looking at was not going to work in terms of reduction in overtime. Now we've reduced overtime even more without adding any police officers. There's no way that we're actually going to see those savings, and we all know this, if we don't actually change the policing model. The current overtime is a result of the fact that we have about 150 officers trying to do the work of 196, close to 200. So even just maintaining what we are doing right now and having that work and having the budget that we literally just passed makes sense is going to require us to figure out how we change our policing model. And finally, I think that even the Police Officers Association and the police chief have stated publicly that police officers are not mental health experts. They're not necessarily, and in the ideal world, we would have people who are experts dealing with mental health crises. We would have people who are experts dealing with homelessness and all these sort of different social ills that have unfairly, in a certain way, been ceded to police to deal with. So this is a conversation that we need to have. Now, to the POA, I just want to say, to you all, and I heard from Mr. Terrio's comments earlier today, and obviously we heard from a lot of police officers during the course of this budget process over the last few weeks. I just want to say this is not about attacking the POA or punishing the POA. This is just a conversation that we need to have. A conversation that, yes, was sparked because of a movement that was critical of police, but that does put a very clear thing in our face. And again, many of you have acknowledged that this is a problem, that the current situation is unsustainable. And so to the defund movement, I want to say, again, thank you for putting this in our faces. And we've had we're going to disagree on aspects of this, but you're right. We do need to look at this. We can't keep ignoring the elephant in the room, budget after budget after budget. But also we have to do it carefully. And so it makes sense that we would engage all the stakeholders. It makes sense that we will do this through a process where we know what we're getting, because at the end of that process, we can all, as a community, know what's happening. Now, obviously, and I'm not going to sort of be, overly positive. I understand that there's going to be friction in this process. I understand that this process is going to be uncomfortable at times. But if we do this together and if we do it carefully, we can get to a better place as a community. And so I'm going to do my best to accommodate some of the community requests and proposals that I've heard about this issue. We as a council I hope are going to do our best to do that as well. And then to folks who haven't engaged, to members of the public who are not in the defund movement, may not be police officers, we need to hear from you in this process too. We don't want to make mistakes. We don't want to rush things. Let's take our time. Let's get buy-in, and let's really have this conversation over the next few weeks and months about what we want policing to look like.
Okay, let's call the roll and vote, please.
Vice Mayor Bates?
No.
Councilmember Choi?
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson?
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez,
Yes.
Councilmember Myrick,
Yes.
Councilmember Willis,
Yes.
and Mayor Butt.
I'm gonna vote no.
Yes.
Okay.
13 is to approve the appointments of the following nominees to the Reimagining Public Safety Task Force by appointments by Mayor Butt, Joy Schlimmer, James Lee, David Tucker, by Vice Mayor Bates, Don Gosney, Ben Terriot, Linda Jackson, Whitmore, Councilmember Choi, Tania Pulido, Kristen Killian Lobos, Marcus Injasing, by Councilmember Johnson III, DeWanda Joseph, Armand Lee, Randy Joseph, by Councilmember Martinez, Tamnesha Walker, BK Williams, and Andrea Soto, Councilmember Myrick, Dakari Sion, Deborah Small, Jasmine Fry, and Councilmember Willis, Laura Mango, Louis Chacon, and Shirley Leslie. Vice Mayor Bates,
Yes.
Councilmember Choi,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez,
Yes.
Councilmember Myrick,
Yes.
Councilmember Willis is absent, and Mayor Butt.
Yes.
Motion passes with Councilmember Willis absent.
The focus of the task force was to really focus on a new model for providing public safety as we move forward in addressing the important issues that are facing our community and our country. And I just want to make sure you understand that your task force of 21 people have worked very hard, very dedicated, and very committed over the last 8 months, who have continued to come and participate. I've not seen any kind of significant drop off in the number of people participating. So that's really to their credit. They have conducted 16 task force meetings, going anywhere from 2 to 5 hours in length. They also put together their own community roundtables to go out and involve the community and educate the community on the information that was presented to the task force and the things that they were considering as they move forward. And in addition to that, the last 4 months, the subcommittees have been holding twice monthly subcommittee meetings. So the group has invested over 80 hours of times in meetings, plus the additional meeting preparation time and research that they've done. So I really want to think the community needs to know and commend the commitment of these 21 individuals.
Madam Clerk, let's call the question and call the vote. Let's see.
Councilmember Bates is absent. Councilmember Jimenez,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez,
Yes.
Councilmember McLaughlin,
Yes.
Councilmember Willis.
Yes.
Mayor Butt is absent. The motion passes with Councilmember Bates and Mayor Butt absent.
So we have brought forward what staff is recommending as the best opportunity to meet the interests of the task force to start something and to move forward on implementation, given where we are right now. So I really want to thank everybody who's here, who's helping with the presentation tonight. I personally know, because I met with them, is that every person here has worked nights and weekends over the past couple of weeks trying to quickly put something together. And I really appreciate their hard work and effort and hope everyone here does the same. So I am going to ask, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going through each of the 4 recommendations that the 4 areas of recommendation that were made and presenting how we again can implement and can start moving forward on this process. So I'm going to ask Jim Nantel to please start with that.
So as Laura indicated, I'm Jim Nantel, and I am currently working as the Interim Project Manager 3. One of my assignments in this capacity is as a staff liaison to the Reimagining Public Safety Task Force. Next slide, please. As the council will recall, on May 10th, representatives of 3 of the 4 subcommittees of the task force presented recommendations which had been approved by the task force as a whole. In addition to a number of policy recommendations, there were 4 budget-related recommendations. And those budget recommendations totaled $10.3 million, $10.28 million in year 1. To fund the expanded and new programs that were proposed, they also included a recommendation to reallocate $10.3 million from the police department to fund these programs. At the meeting on May 10th, the city council directed that the approved task force proposals be considered by the city manager as part of the fiscal year 21-22 budget and return to the city council with a recommendation as to how to implement those proposals. And that is why we are here before the council tonight. Next slide, please. These are the 4 budget-related recommendations that total the $10.28 million. At the May 10th meeting, the council also directed staff to coordinate the implementation of these recommendations with the task force. At your subsequent meeting on May 18th, the council extended the term of the task force until end of September so that we could continue to work on the additional policy recommendations that are still being worked on by the task force. And the extension also allowed us more time for development of the implementation plans.
The motion was that we will not have any layoffs, including in the Richmond Police Department, no layoffs. Is that your motion?
Yes,
With the explanation that you put around it. Okay, I second it.
I am very confident that we can support the programs with any layoff. And we need to stop this message. So thank you.
So it's not to have any layoffs and no increase in positions for the
Yes.
police department. Okay.
Yes.
My suggestion would be to give direction to staff that is in line with your motion. So you're moving to give direction to staff to follow that direction.
Okay, I accept that. Thank you.
Councilmember Bates,
No.
Councilmember Jimenez,
Yes,
Vice Mayor Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez,
Yes.
Councilmember McLaughlin,
Yes,
Councilmember Willis,
Yes.
and Mayor Butt.
No.
The motion passes with Mayor Butt and Councilmember Bates voting no. Item H1 is under budget session, is to receive information on additional financial options for implementing Reimagining Public Safety Task Force proposals and direct staff to incorporate one specific option into the fiscal year 2021-22 budget. When the report was originally drafted, staff recommended option A and may bring a further option to the city council meeting based on recent events.
I'd like to ask if in fact eliminating 12 more positions to the 34 already eliminated, that she can promise no reduction in service level.
The service level impacts the services that I've presented and that I sent last week are impacts that we are already feeling because we don't have the positions currently. So there's no new impacts, except that we do still anticipate we're going to lose even more than the vacant positions because we have people that are in various stages of hiring with other departments. So I'm not sure how many people will actually leave and if there will be additional impacts from those people leaving.
My understanding is that you know, whether it's written or not, that there's that you're bound to provide a minimum staffing level in accordance with the agreement with the Richmond Police Officers Association. Is that correct?
We have a minimum staffing level in our policy of 9 beat officers.
And you can maintain that through the next year with all these positions gone?
I will be able to maintain that. However, sometimes overtime will have to be used depending on if officers are on vacation or on injury leave or away at training.
The next motion is by Councilmember McLaughlin and second by Councilmember Jimenez to adopt option E. Councilmember Bates,
No.
Councilmember Jimenez,
yes,
Vice Mayor Johnson,
Option A is the only true compromise for this city. I will have to continue to abstain.
Councilmember Martinez,
Yes.
Councilmember McLaughlin,
yes,
Councilmember Willis,
Yes.
Mayor Butt.
No.
The motion passes with Councilmember Jimenez, Councilmember Martinez, McLaughlin, and Willis voting yes. Councilmember Bates and Mayor Butt voting no, and Vice Mayor Johnson abstaining.
Similarly, Reimagining Public Safety, Council adopted or chose option E at the previous meeting. Both of these are incorporated in this current budget in the general fund and in ARPA. Total funding was $6.38 million. The CIP budget generally comes from a variety of sources.
I will say if more policing and prisons make America safe, we'll be the safety nation in the world, right? So just kind of like that narrative that we need a lot of police. We are not saying that we don't need the police, but we are saying that in addition to the police, we need other services. And what we are doing here is to make sure that are other services. And I think like I want to make a motion. And so my motion is that we move this CSO position into the Reimagining Public Safety budget and put it there so that implementation and that coordination decided how these positions are going to be implemented. So take it out from the police department, put it into the Reimagining budget for further conversation and coordination of how we are going to provide these services. And the discussions about implementation occur, that there is a collaboration on how these position could be part of the Reimagining Public Safety implementation.
Okay.
To do that.
Okay.
And we are not saying that we don't need it. We are
Right.
saying that is more about how these collaborations and happen. So we don't, as Councilmember McLaughlin said, we don't have this kind of like dual, because we know that in the implementation, there are some positions that are thinking about doing some of that. And also because the problem, like you hear, like SEIU 1021, it hasn't, you haven't collaborated to create this position. So you are bringing some position that might not happen at all. So what we are trying to do is to make sure that some of that happen in a collaboration.
I also want to remind the council that last year, as we reimagined public safety, as we discussed reimagining public safety, the council at that time directed me to look at doing things differently and to meet the service needs of the community with the reduced staff. So in response to that, I looked at our operational deployment to find ways to do things more efficiently and with the service mindset that reduced with the reduced budget and staffing. So the community service officer positions was one of the ideas that we came up with and had been thinking about for a little while. And it actually takes positions that we currently have and reallocates them to the CSO positions because we wanted to enhance what some of our positions are doing now. So we couldn't just add those duties to existing positions. That's why we came up with the CSO position, because it could take on additional duties. Those are taking low-level police reports, doing traffic control, which will alleviate officers from doing those tasks, towing vehicles, issuing parking citations, and providing other services to the community. Now, we always put what we anticipate doing for the fiscal year into the budget, because if we don't, then we don't have the budget to do that. That's why we had to plan ahead of time, even though we're still in negotiations and talking to unions and stuff like that. And it still has to go to personnel board and all those other steps in order for it to happen. But I'm a little bit confused about the opposition of the positions. The position would allow for us to deploy professional employees who do not carry guns into low risk situations as requested by the community and as directed by the council last year.
Well, what's the time sequence and what are you going to respond to and you're not going to be able to respond to?
In response to your question, Councilmember Bates, those are more of the police officer positions. And when we first talked about losing the 12 vacant positions, I talked about the impacts that we're currently feeling because of because we don't have those positions now.
This is to approve item I1 and also to direct staff to move the CSO positions to the CSO positions to the Reimagine Public Safety budget for further discussion on implementation, the staff collaborating with the task force team. And also to allocate half of $8,703 to fund Juneteenth and Single Day Mayo celebrations. Councilmember Bates,
So my vote is no.
Councilmember Jimenez,
Yeah, my vote is yes.
Vice Mayor Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez,
Yeah.
Councilmember McLaughlin,
Yes.
Councilmember Willis,
Yes.
and Mayor Butt.
No,
The motion passes with Councilmember Bates and Mayor Butt voting no.